Hey everyone, so we are moving on to my second video. This will be a more harsh topic, especially for many Americans, and especially for capitalists this will be a harsh video. This video will essentially prove that America has no democracy and that America actually is a fascist, autocratic system, or in short, a dictatorship. So you thought that America was a democracy and had democracy and freedom and that you could vote and that your votes count. Well, guess what? You've been brainwashed and you've been lied to for decades. Yes, you can vote, but your votes simply don't count. The only thing that counts are the popular votes. The votes of the actual people are denied and don't count. The only thing that counts are the votes of a few states' electors, or also called electoral representatives. First of all, before I go into details, I have linked a video in the description which shows you how the American electoral system works with some nice animation. However, I will explain it myself and quote it, and it's up to you if you want to watch the video or not. So first we will examine how the American electoral system works, and then we will look up and examine what a democracy is and how a democracy works, and lastly what an autocracy or dictatorship is and how that works. So, as mentioned earlier, the American electoral system works by letting the population vote, but by simply ignoring these votes and only letting the votes of some electoral representatives count. So, quote, "The United States Electoral College is the institution that officially elects the President and the Vice President of the United States every 4 years. The President and the Vice President are not elected directly by the voters. Instead, they are elected by electors, who are chosen by popular vote on a state-by-state basis." Quote end. So, as you can see, the votes of the population or the people are just simply ignored and tossed aside, and simply don't count. Yes, you can vote, but those are fake votes. Votes that simply don't count. A voting system that makes you believe or think that you can vote and that your votes count. But the truth is, your votes simply don't count and they are simply ignored. So, now let us see what a democracy is and how a democracy works. Quote, "Democracy is a form of government in which all eligible citizens are meant to participate equally, either directly or through elected representatives indirectly in the proposal. Development and establishment of the laws by which their society is run. The term originates from the Greek demokratia, rule of the people, which was formed from demos, people, and kratos, power or rule, in the 15th century before Christ to denote the political systems then existing in Greek city-states, notably Athens. The term is an antonym to aristocratia, rule of an elite. While theoretically these definitions are in opposition, in the practice the distinction has been blurred historically." Quote end. So, what does this tell us about democracy and how democracy works? It simply tells us that a democracy is a form of government in which the people vote and the people decide who goes into or which party goes into a parliament, and where the people hold power and the votes of the people actually hold power and count. And this can either happen directly by direct votes from the population, Or it can happen indirectly if the population votes the representatives. However, in case of America, neither the votes of the population count, nor is the population able to vote these representatives, which in the case of America are the electorals, or the elected representatives, or the electoral college, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, the point is that you cannot vote for these electorals or this electoral college. You cannot vote for them, which is in direct opposition to democracy. Because, as we said earlier, this can happen either directly or indirectly. However, the point of democracy is that the people hold power and that their votes count. And that their votes either count directly by voting themselves, or at least indirectly by representatives that the people themselves vote. However, the Electoral College is not voted by the people. The Electoral College itself is voted by candidates from each state. And those candidates are finally indeed voted by the people. However, the problem here is that the candidates that vote for the Electoral College or the Electoral College representatives have no obligation or are not bound by law to actually vote for the person they promise to vote. For example, you have an electoral candidate that promises to vote for an electoral college that actually supports Bush or Romney or Obama or whoever. However, they promise to vote for these people, but in the end, the candidate itself votes for a total different electoral college, which then votes for a total different president or vice president. And this is why this kind of voting system is not even indirectly. Indirectly would mean that the people vote for the electoral college themselves, which they don't. They merely vote for candidates, who then vote for the electoral college, who then vote for the president or the vice president. As you can see, the votes of the people or the will of the people is totally ignored here. It all comes down to candidates, which are themselves always rich elites and upper class, who vote for an electoral college, which are upper class and elites too, who then vote for a president. As you can see, this is actually nothing else but a system which is purely run and purely controlled by rich upper class elites, and totally ignores the will and the votes of the people in any way. This is not demos. Demos, as I said, means that the people actually hold power, but in this system they don't. Demos, also because it means people, means that all people and all votes are equal, which in this system, once again, they are not, because they vote for a candidate which then votes for an elite, and the candidate itself is an elite too. However, of course the votes of the elites count as well, but the problem is, in this system only the votes of the elites count, and not the votes and the will of the people. As I said, this is not demos. Demos means all citizens, be they rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Demos means everyone, and not only rich elites, which is exactly what this voting system is all about. This is actually kratia, but it lacks demos. As we said, demos, people, and votes of the people. However, it is kratia. It has parliaments and it has representatives which are in power, which is typical for kratia. However, democracy itself is both demos and kratia. However, in case of the American voting system, you only have kratia, and you don't have demos, which is not a democracy. Actually, by definition, this is a so-called autocracy. I don't want to get in details on this, but however, notice that a dictatorship and an autocracy are pretty similar, that's true. They're pretty near to each other, but they're not the same. And in case of America, it's clearly an autocracy, which is made up by the candidates and the Electoral College. And actually, this is exactly the same system that Rome itself used. The same system was used in Rome. And anyone who is versed in history will know that Rome was an autocracy, and by definition an autocracy. However, this indeed is a quite complicated voting system. However, there's not much more to say about this. Actually, it's pretty detailed already. Well, the only thing that lastly is definitely worth mentioning is the fact that America in many, many ways is very, very similar to Rome. Be it in warfare, their political system, their culture, they are in many ways very, very similar to Rome and the Roman Empire. They are also similar in ways of aggressiveness, invasion, exploitation, slavery, etc. Which is not surprising if you actually look at the American voting system, which, as I said, is the same voting system that Rome used. It's the same autocratic system. Lastly, what needs to be said is that an autocracy or an autocratic system is a system in which a small group of privileged people hold power over votes instead of the people, which is democracy. Autocracy uses a system of votes or candidates in which only a few privileged people are actually allowed to vote, and or at least that their votes count. And this is exactly what America is and America has. And this is why America has no democracy. It is actually an autocracy. You have been brainwashed into believing that you have a democracy, which you have not. You have also been brainwashed, this can even be read, for example, that you have voting papers in which it shows the name of the president or the vice president, but you are actually not voting them. You're voting a candidate in your state that pledges to vote this president. However, as I said, this candidate is not objected or bound by law to force for to vote for this president. He can vote for anyone else he decides to, and you can do nothing about it. At this point, you should really ask yourself, why doesn't it show the candidate that you vote for, but instead shows the president that you don't even vote for yourself? Why is that so? Think. Use your brain. Brainwash. This is to make you believe that you actually can vote for the president, which you can't. This is to make you believe you have a democracy, which you haven't. This is to make you believe you can vote for the president directly, which you can't. This whole fucking American system is one huge brainwash. Congratulations to all Americans who haven't noticed this and don't know this, and still believe that they can directly vote for the president, which you simply can't. Sorry. Welcome to reality. Actually, I have a bit more to say about this, but if I would say that, I would be insulting and raging, and this also would get me into trouble as well. Also, it would be very immature, which is why I will refrain from doing so. So instead, think about it, let it go to your mind, and also do a research. And as I said, I posted links and detailed descriptions in the video description, so that you have sources and can look it up, or have at least words you can Google and look up for yourself. So I would highly recommend that you do so. So, peace out, everyone.